Good morning, guys. It's Josh here, and welcome to Discovery Kids Online. Today, we are talking about something that is actually really hard for me to talk about. We're asking the question, why do bad things happen to people? You know, bad. What are things that are bad? Can you think of some things that are bad? What about fighting? Have you ever fought with your brother or sister? I know I've fought with my brother and sister lots of times. How about lying? That's not good, is it? So that's bad. Have you ever lied to mum or dad or a teacher? Me too. What about cheating? That's bad too, isn't it? You ever cheated on a test? It's not good to think about these things, is it? We often make bad choices. And that's the things that are bad, aren't they? A lot of bad in the world is simply bad choices. So why do bad things happen? Are people born bad? I don't think they are. People aren't born bad, but God gives us free choice. And when we make the wrong choice, that's usually a bad choice. Hey, do you remember last week when Jacinta was talking about forgiveness? How good is it that no matter how many bad choices we make, God will always forgive us over and over and over again. That's why we celebrate Jesus dying on the cross. And no matter how many bad choices you make, guys, God is always going to forgive you. And that's the best thing to remember. So, what does the Bible talk about when bad things are happening in our lives? Well, today I'm going to read from James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. And this is what it says. My brothers and sisters, you will face all kinds of trouble. And when you do, think of it as pure joy. That's a bit difficult sometimes, isn't it? Your faith will be tested. You know that when this happens, it will produce in you a strength to continue on. You know that strength that God's talking about here in the Bible? We like to sometimes call that steadfastness. And when I think of steadfastness is being firm and unwavering. And I think of a thing like this big tree here. You might be able to see, look how big this tree is. How long has this tree been standing here? No matter how many big storms have come, over hundreds of years maybe, this tree has been standing here. And it is unwavering. It is steadfast. So when bad things are happening, you need to count on God, and you will have steadfastness for yourself. And you can count on God to be there for you always. The other big word in the Bible here is faith. Well, what is faith? Faith is having a trust in something or someone like God, even when it doesn't make sense. Because sometimes we can be in a bad situation, and some of you may be able to think of those times, and we're like, I don't understand what's going on. So even when it's not working for you, it's those times that we need to really have strong faith that God is going to carry us through every single time. So, trying to explain bad. It's a really difficult one to explain, but I want to try it in this way. I'm standing in this little room at the moment, and the light is on. But when the light goes out, darkness happens. To get rid of the darkness, all we have to do is turn the light back on. I like to think of darkness simply as there is no light. So the way I explain bad things is there is no love. Badness happens when love is not the choice. When we make a bad choice, that means we're not choosing love. And that's the way I like to explain why there is badness in the world. Simply people are choosing the wrong thing. Instead of love, they're choosing a bad choice. So unfortunately, out in the world where you live, there are lots of bad things happening out there. Sometimes you can be affected by the choices of other people that make you feel bad, but you didn't do them yourself. You may know of someone at school, or maybe even yourself, as being teased or bullied at school. These other people that are doing that are making you feel bad and sad. That's their bad choice. They've not chosen love, have they? That doesn't make them a bad person though. We've got to remember, it's just a bad choice when bad things are happening. Like Jacinta said last week, we also have to try and set an example. We have to show people that there's a better way to do, and God always asks us that we have to forgive every single time, don't we? And often, that's a really, really tough thing to do. You know, I like to take some inspiration out of two really cool characters in the Bible, and you can read about these guys. First one is Job. And if you read about Job, he lost everything. He was taken away all of his family, all of his health, he was really sick, and all of his wealth, everything that he owned, all his cattle, everything like that was all taken away. And yet Job chose to stick true to God. He was steadfast, like that big tree that we looked at earlier. And do you know what? In Job 42, you can read about what God did there. After everything that had happened and Job stuck true to God, guess what? God gave Job back twice as much as what he had. Twice as much children, twice as much health, and even stronger health as well. And then David. How about David? He was the youngest of 7 boys, the least likely to be asked by God to be king of Israel. When he was chosen and Samuel anointed him, King Saul, he wasn't happy. He chased David, he wanted to kill David. David ran for his life, lived in a cave, was scared, and yet eventually, we all know about King David and what he did. He was the king of Israel, he slayed the giant, and is probably one of the most amazing kings that we can read about in the Bible. So when bad things are happening, you still have to make the choice that you're going to press into God and stick with him always. So I thought this would be a good time to talk to you guys about my own personal experiences for when bad things happen in my life. And a lot of you might have heard my story about the time, which was almost 10 years ago now, when my first wife, who was really sick, passed away and died. And for me, that was a really, really hard time. It was a bad time. It was a difficult time. But the biggest thing I learned through that most difficult time in my life was that I had an invitation from God to trust in him. And that was the big word. I had to trust in him, even when things didn't make sense. And there may be times, guys, when you have to remember when things don't make sense because of the bad things that are happening in life, that I can still trust in God. A great thing that I remembered is that God's love is relentless. And if you don't know about relentless is never ending. It is always there. It is constant. And this was a thing that got me through. And what I love is that I feel restored and put back together. I feel healed. And I hope that maybe that would be your experience one day. So guys, if something's not making sense because of the bad things that are happening in life, you have to make a choice. Am I going to choose God? Am I going to trust him? Because he's going to invite you to be with him. And if you do, guys, he will use that moment to get you to be in the best place ever when you get through those bad situations. Guys, I hope you've learned some things this week about making good choices. I ask you, when you're out in the school and you're at home, when there's a choice to make, just remember, am I choosing love or am I choosing something else? And I hope you have a great week, and I cannot wait to see you again next time. See you guys.